Samantha had always been the kind of woman who believed in doing everything right. She grew up in a modest household where hard work and respect were the cornerstones of life. When she married Ethan, she thought she was stepping into a fairy tale, a wealthy family, a luxurious lifestyle, and a chance to build a beautiful future. But soon, reality hit her like a ton of bricks. Ethan wasn't the man she thought he was. From the outside, he seemed charming and successful, but behind closed doors, he was cold and distant. He rarely spoke to her unless it was to criticize something she did or didn't do. Samantha tried her best to please him, cooking his favorite meals, keeping the house spotless, and attending every social event with a smile on her face. Yet no matter how hard she worked, Ethan never acknowledged her efforts. Instead, he treated her as if she were invisible, often ignoring her presence entirely. If Ethan's behavior wasn't bad enough, there was Evelyn, his mother. Evelyn was the queen of the household, ruling over everyone with an iron fist. She made it clear from day one that Samantha would never be good enough for her son or their family. Every little thing Samantha did was scrutinized. If the tea was too strong, Evelyn would sigh loudly and mutter about how incompetent Samantha was. If Samantha wore something Evelyn didn't approve of, she'd make snide comments about her lack of taste. Even when Samantha decorated the living room for a holiday party, Evelyn found fault, saying it looked cheap and unrefined. What hurt Samantha the most was that Ethan never stood up for her. Whenever Evelyn lashed out, Ethan simply stayed silent, acting as though none of it mattered. Sometimes, he even joined in, making Samantha feel even smaller than before. It was as if they had formed a team, determined to break her spirit bit by bit. Despite all this, Samantha kept quiet. She told herself that things would get better if she just tried harder. Maybe if she proved herself worthy, they'd finally accept her. So she worked tirelessly, going above and beyond to meet their impossible standards. She woke up early to prepare breakfast, stayed up late to clean the house, and attended endless family gatherings where she was treated like an outsider. Her friends noticed the change in her. They saw the exhaustion in her eyes and the sadness in her smile. But Samantha brushed off their concerns. She didn't want anyone to think she couldn't handle her marriage. But deep down, Samantha was crumbling. The constant criticism, the icy silence from Ethan, and the relentless attacks from Evelyn weighed heavily on her heart. At night, when the house was quiet, she'd lie awake wondering what she had done wrong. Why couldn't she earn their love? Why did they treat her like she was nothing? Little did Samantha know, her patience was about to run out. The cracks in her resolve were growing wider, and one fateful evening, everything would come crashing down. Until then, she continued to endure, clinging to the hope that somehow things would turn around. But unbeknownst to her, fate had other plans. And soon, Samantha would discover the strength within herself that she never knew existed. It was a typical Friday evening, and Samantha found herself once again preparing for one of Evelyn's elaborate family dinners. The table was set with fine china. The aroma of roasted chicken filled the air, and soft classical music played in the background. To anyone looking in, it would seem like the perfect picture of an upper-class family gathering. But for Samantha, these events were anything but pleasant. They were battlegrounds where she was constantly under attack. As guests arrived, Evelyn took center stage, greeting everyone with her usual charm and grace. She made sure to introduce Samantha as Ethan's wife rather than by her name, subtly reinforcing that Samantha was merely an accessory to their prestigious family. Samantha forced a smile, playing her part perfectly, but inside, she felt like a shadow, unseen and unheard. The dinner started smoothly enough, with light conversation about work, vacations, and upcoming events. But then, Evelyn turned her attention to Samantha. With a smirk on her face, she said loudly, "Samantha, dear, I must say, your cooking has improved. Slightly." A few polite chuckles rippled through the room, but Samantha froze, feeling the heat rise to her cheeks. Before she could respond, Evelyn continued, Though I still don't understand why you insist on using so much garlic. It's overwhelming. Samantha clenched her fists under the table, trying to keep her composure. This wasn't the first time Evelyn had criticized her in front of others, but tonight felt different, more personal. As if sensing her discomfort, Ethan chimed in, adding fuel to the fire. Honestly, Samantha, sometimes I think you put more effort into arguing than actually improving. The words stung. Samantha looked at him, hoping for some sign of remorse, but his expression remained indifferent. Her heart sank as the reality hit her. He didn't care. Not only was he failing to defend her, but he was actively joining Evelyn in tearing her down. When the laughter died down, Samantha tried to explain herself. "I'm sorry if the food isn't to everyone's liking," she said softly, her voice trembling. "I can adjust next time." "Oh, there's no need to apologize," Evelyn interrupted, waving her hand dismissively. "We all know you're doing your best. Whether it's good enough is another matter entirely." That was the final straw. Something inside Samantha snapped. All the years of biting her tongue, swallowing her pride, and pretending everything was okay came rushing back to her. She excused herself from the table, her vision blurred with tears, and hurried to the bathroom. Leaning against the cold marble counter, she stared at her reflection in the mirror. Who was this woman staring back at her? Where was the strong, confident girl she used to be? For hours after returning home, Samantha sat alone in the dark, replaying the evening over and over in her mind. She realized that no amount of effort or sacrifice would ever be enough for Ethan or Evelyn. They didn't want her to succeed. They wanted her to stay small, powerless, and dependent on them. And for the first time, Samantha allowed herself to imagine a life without them. A spark ignited within her, a fierce determination to take control of her own destiny. She didn't know how yet, but she vowed to change her circumstances. No longer would she let them dictate who she was or what she deserved. That night, as tears dried on her cheeks, Samantha made a silent promise to herself. She would rise above their cruelty, reclaim her dignity, and show them exactly what they had underestimated. The next morning, Samantha woke up with a strange sense of clarity. For the first time in years, she didn't feel weighed down by fear or self-doubt. Instead, she felt a quiet resolve, a determination to fight back against the people who had treated her so cruelly. But fighting wasn't enough. She needed a plan, something that would give her power over Ethan and Evelyn once and for all. Her thoughts drifted to the attic, an old dusty space filled with boxes of forgotten memories and documents. It was a place she rarely visited, but something told her it might hold answers. After making sure no one was watching, Samantha quietly climbed the creaky stairs, her heart pounding with anticipation. The air in the attic was musty, and sunlight streamed through cracks in the wooden shutters, illuminating piles of cardboard boxes stacked haphazardly around the room. She began opening the boxes one by one, sorting through faded photographs, yellowed letters, and outdated household items. At first, it seemed like nothing more than junk, things Evelyn probably hadn't touched in decades. But then, tucked away in the corner of a box labeled Financial Records, Samantha found something that made her breath catch. A stack of papers detailing suspicious transactions, bank statements with unexplained deposits, and contracts signed under questionable circumstances. Curiosity turned into shock as Samantha sifted through the documents. She realized she was holding proof of illegal activities, embezzlement, money laundering, even blackmail. Names and dates were scribbled on sticky notes attached to some of the files, including those of prominent business figures. It became clear that Ethan and Evelyn weren't just wealthy. They had built their fortune on lies and deceit. These records were dangerous, and Samantha knew exactly what kind of leverage they could give her. For hours, Samantha pored over the documents, piecing together the puzzle. Every detail seemed to confirm her worst suspicions about them. They weren't just cruel, they were criminals. Her hands trembled as she carefully photographed each page with her phone, knowing she couldn't risk taking the originals without drawing suspicion. Once she had everything documented, she slipped the papers back into the box exactly as she'd found them and returned to her bedroom, her mind racing. That night, unable to sleep, Samantha sat at her desk, staring at the photos on her phone. She felt a mix of emotions: anger, fear, but also excitement. This was her chance to turn the tables. If Ethan and Evelyn thought they could crush her spirit, they were wrong. With this evidence, she could expose their crimes and finally free herself from their control. But Samantha knew she couldn't act impulsively. She needed help, someone who understood the law and could guide her through what came next. The following day, she reached out to an old acquaintance, a lawyer named Claire, who had always been kind to her. Over coffee, Samantha explained her situation, leaving out specifics until she was certain she could trust Claire completely. To her relief, Claire listened intently and promised to assist her discreetly. As days passed, Samantha continued gathering information. She started paying closer attention to conversations between Ethan and Evelyn, noting anything that might strengthen her case. She also created a secret email account where she stored copies of the evidence, ensuring it would be safe even if her phone was compromised. For the first time in years, Samantha felt alive. Though the road ahead was uncertain, she knew she was no longer alone in this fight. Armed with secrets that could destroy Ethan and Evelyn's empire, she began preparing for the battle of her life. A battle she intended to win. With the evidence safely stored and a plan beginning to take shape, Samantha knew she couldn't rely solely on exposing Ethan and Evelyn's crimes. She needed to build herself up, mentally, emotionally, and financially, so that when the storm hit, she would be strong enough to withstand it. For years, she had been living in their shadow, but now it was time to step into the light. The first thing Samantha did was enroll in online courses. Late at night, after everyone else was asleep, she sat at her desk with a cup of tea and opened her laptop. She chose subjects that interested her and aligned with her skills: business management, digital marketing, and finance. At first, it was challenging. Juggling coursework while keeping up appearances in the household wasn't easy. But every time she felt overwhelmed, she reminded herself why she was doing this. Each completed module brought her closer to independence, and the sense of accomplishment kept her going. Samantha also reconnected with old friends, people who had drifted away during her marriage. She hadn't realized how isolated she'd become until she started reaching out. Her friend Priya, whom she hadn't spoken to in years, was thrilled to hear from her. Over coffee one afternoon, Samantha cautiously shared bits of her struggles, leaving out the more explosive details. Priya listened intently, offering words of encouragement and reminding Samantha of her worth. "You're stronger than you think," Priya said firmly, "and we're here for you." Inspired by her friend's support, Samantha began setting small goals for herself. She started waking up earlier to exercise, finding solace in morning walks that cleared her mind. She redecorated her bedroom, adding touches of color and warmth to create a space that felt truly hers. These changes may have seemed minor, but they symbolized something bigger, a reclaiming of her identity. Behind the scenes, Samantha worked tirelessly to protect herself legally. With Claire's guidance, she drafted a will, updated her financial records, and set aside money in secret accounts. She even researched local shelters and legal aid programs, just in case things escalated. Though she hoped it wouldn't come to that, she wanted to be prepared for anything. One day, while browsing online, Samantha stumbled upon a community group for women who had faced similar challenges. Intrigued, she joined the forum and began reading posts from others who had survived toxic relationships. Their stories resonated deeply with her, and she found comfort in knowing she wasn't alone. Slowly, she started sharing her own experiences, using a pseudonym to stay anonymous. The responses were overwhelmingly supportive, and for the first time, Samantha felt like part of a sisterhood. As weeks turned into months, Samantha noticed subtle shifts within herself. She walked taller, spoke more confidently, and stopped seeking approval from those who refused to give it. When Evelyn criticized her cooking or Ethan dismissed her ideas, Samantha no longer crumbled. Instead, she smiled politely and moved on, knowing their opinions no longer mattered. Inside, she felt a quiet power growing, a fire that burned brighter with each passing day. Ethan and Evelyn, oblivious to what was happening, continued treating her as they always had. They assumed she was still the same timid woman they could manipulate and belittle. What they didn't realize was that Samantha was building an arsenal, not just of evidence, but of strength, knowledge, and resilience. She was transforming into someone unrecognizable to them, a woman who wouldn't back down, who wouldn't tolerate abuse, and who was ready to fight for her freedom. By the time Samantha felt fully prepared, she knew it was only a matter of time before she made her move. The pieces were falling into place, and she could almost taste victory. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming her life, proving to herself that she deserved better, and showing Ethan and Evelyn that they had underestimated her in the worst possible way. The day Samantha had been preparing for finally arrived. She chose a family dinner, a setting where Ethan and Evelyn felt most comfortable asserting their dominance, as the stage for her confrontation. Dressed in a simple yet elegant outfit, she walked into the dining room with an air of calm confidence that immediately caught their attention. For the first time in years, they couldn't ignore her presence. As plates were passed around and idle chatter filled the room, Samantha cleared her throat softly. The sound was enough to silence everyone at the table. All eyes turned to her, some curious, others suspicious. Evelyn raised an eyebrow, clearly annoyed by the interruption. "What is it now, Samantha?" she asked, her tone dripping with condescension. Samantha didn't flinch. She placed a slim folder on the table and slid it toward them. "I think you'll want to see this," she said evenly, her voice steady despite the storm brewing inside her. Ethan frowned, picking up the folder and flipping it open. His face went pale almost instantly as he scanned the documents inside. Evelyn leaned over to look, her lips tightening into a thin line as realization dawned on her. "These are your financial records," Samantha continued, addressing both of them directly. "Every illegal transaction, every shady deal, every name you've blackmailed or manipulated. It's all here. And before you ask, yes, I have copies. Digital ones, too." Ethan slammed the folder shut, his hands trembling slightly. "Where did you get this?" he demanded, his voice sharp but laced with panic. Evelyn glared at Samantha, her usual composure cracking under the weight of fear. "You sneaky little," she began, but Samantha cut her off. "Don't bother insulting me," Samantha said firmly, meeting Evelyn's gaze without blinking. "It won't change anything. What will change is your life if these documents end up in the wrong hands, or the right ones, depending on how you look at it." For a moment, there was complete silence in the room. The weight of Samantha's words hung heavy in the air. Ethan stammered, trying to find a way out. You can't do this. You're my wife. We can work this out. Just destroy those papers, and we'll forget any of this ever happened." Samantha shook her head slowly, her expression unwavering. "No deals," she replied. "This isn't about negotiating. It's about justice, for everything you've done to me, to others, and to yourselves." Evelyn tried next, her voice trembling with desperation. "Please, Samantha, think about what you're doing. Do you really want to ruin our family, our reputation? You could lose everything." Samantha laughed bitterly, surprising even herself. "My reputation, my family. Let's be honest. You two never considered me part of this family. To you, I was just someone to control, humiliate, and use whenever it suited you. Well, those days are over." She stood up, her posture commanding respect. "Here's what's going to happen. I'm filing for divorce, and unless you want these documents handed over to the authorities, and trust me, I will, I suggest you cooperate fully. No more games, no more manipulation. This ends now." Ethan and Evelyn exchanged panicked glances, their usual arrogance replaced by sheer terror. They begged, pleaded, and even threatened, but Samantha remained unmoved. She had rehearsed this moment countless times in her mind, and nothing they said would sway her. As she walked out of the dining room, leaving them speechless, Samantha felt a surge of triumph. For so long, they had held the power, but not anymore. She had taken back control, proving that she was stronger than they ever imagined. And though the battle wasn't over yet, she knew she had already won the war. The days following Samantha's confrontation were a blur of chaos and desperation, for Ethan and Evelyn, at least. Samantha, on the other hand, moved with purpose and precision. She filed for divorce the very next morning, hiring a top-tier attorney who specialized in high-profile cases. Armed with the evidence she had gathered, she ensured that every legal document was airtight, leaving no room for manipulation or delay. Ethan and Evelyn scrambled to salvage their crumbling empire. They tried bribing Samantha, offering her large sums of money in exchange for her silence. "Take whatever you want," Ethan pleaded during one heated phone call. "Just don't go through with this." But Samantha refused to negotiate. Money wasn't what she wanted. It never had been. What she sought was justice, closure, and freedom from their toxic grip. When bribery failed, they resorted to threats. Evelyn showed up unannounced at Samantha's doorstep one evening, her face flushed with anger. "You'll regret this," she hissed, pointing a finger at Samantha. "No one crosses us and gets away with it." But Samantha simply smiled, a calm, confident smile, and replied, "Go ahead and try. I'm ready for whatever comes next." Their threats didn't stop there. Ethan attempted to smear Samantha's name, spreading lies about her instability to mutual friends and acquaintances. He even contacted some of her old colleagues, hoping to tarnish her reputation. But Samantha had anticipated such tactics. With Claire's help, she released carefully timed statements clarifying the truth, backed by irrefutable evidence of their own wrongdoing. Friends and associates began distancing themselves from Ethan and Evelyn, realizing the couple was far more corrupt than anyone had imagined. Meanwhile, Samantha's decision to report their illegal activities set off a chain reaction. Authorities launched an investigation, freezing bank accounts, seizing assets, and interrogating key players in their schemes. News outlets picked up the story, turning it into a public scandal. Photos of Ethan and Evelyn appeared in headlines alongside accusations of embezzlement, tax evasion, and blackmail. Their once pristine image was shattered beyond repair. As their world unraveled, Samantha focused on rebuilding hers. Using the settlement money from the divorce proceedings, she invested in herself, launching a small business centered around event planning, a passion she discovered while organizing fundraisers for charity groups. Her creativity, attention to detail, and genuine warmth quickly earned her a loyal clientele. Within months, her business began thriving, earning praise not only locally but also online as word spread about her exceptional work. Samantha also embraced her newfound role as an advocate for women facing similar struggles. She started writing anonymous blog posts sharing insights and advice for those trapped in abusive relationships. The response was overwhelming. Hundreds of messages poured in from women thanking her for giving them hope and courage. Inspired by their stories, Samantha decided to host workshops and support groups, creating a safe space where women could share their experiences and learn how to reclaim their lives. Through it all, Samantha refused to let bitterness consume her. Instead, she channeled her energy into growth, surrounding herself with positive influences and focusing on the future. She reconnected with hobbies she abandoned years ago, like painting and gardening, finding joy in the simple pleasures life had to offer. Even her physical appearance seemed to reflect her transformation. She carried herself with confidence, her eyes sparkling with determination. Ethan and Evelyn, now stripped of their wealth and influence, faded into obscurity. Their attempts to reach out to Samantha grew increasingly desperate, but she remained firm, ignoring their calls and messages. She knew better than to give them another chance to manipulate her. They had underestimated her strength, and now they were paying the price. By the time the dust settled, Samantha realized something profound. She hadn't just destroyed their hold over her. She had built something beautiful in its place. Her journey wasn't easy, but it was worth every step. For the first time in years, she felt truly free. Free to dream, to create, and to live life on her own terms. And though challenges lay ahead, Samantha faced them with unwavering resolve, knowing she was stronger than anything the world could throw her way. Months turned into years, and Samantha's life transformed in ways she never thought possible. The scars of her past still lingered, but they no longer defined her. Instead, they served as reminders of how far she had come, a testament to her resilience and strength. Every day brought new opportunities, and Samantha embraced them with open arms, determined to make the most of her second chance. Her business flourished beyond her wildest dreams. What started as a small venture quickly grew into a reputable company known for its creativity and excellence. Clients raved about Samantha's ability to turn their visions into reality, whether it was planning an intimate wedding or organizing a large corporate event. Her team admired her leadership style, compassionate yet decisive, and many credited her success to her authenticity. "You can tell she genuinely cares," one client said during an interview. "She doesn't just do her job, she pours her heart into it." But Samantha's impact extended far beyond her professional achievements. Through her advocacy work, she became a beacon of hope for countless women navigating abusive relationships. Her workshops provided practical tools and emotional support, helping participants regain confidence and independence. Many attendees kept in touch long after the sessions ended, sharing updates on their progress and expressing gratitude for the difference Samantha had made in their lives. One particularly memorable moment came when a young woman named Maya approached Samantha after a workshop. Tears streamed down Maya's face as she recounted her own struggles with a controlling partner. "I didn't think I could ever leave him," she confessed, "but hearing your story gave me the courage to try." Months later, Maya sent Samantha a message saying she had not only left her toxic relationship, but also enrolled in college to pursue her dream of becoming a teacher. Stories like Maya's fueled Samantha's passion, reminding her why she continued doing this work. Despite her busy schedule, Samantha prioritized self-care and personal growth. She traveled to places she'd always dreamed of visiting, immersing herself in different cultures and perspectives. Whether hiking through lush mountains or strolling along serene beaches, she found peace in nature, a stark contrast to the chaos she had endured for so long. Back home, she filled her house with plants, books, and art that inspired her, creating a sanctuary where she could recharge and reflect. As time passed, Ethan and Evelyn faded further into irrelevance. Their names occasionally surfaced in tabloids, usually connected to court hearings or financial troubles, but Samantha paid little attention. They were shadows of their former selves, stripped of the power and privilege they once wielded. Occasionally, they attempted to contact her, pleading for forgiveness or asking for help, but Samantha remained resolute. Forgiveness wasn't something she owed them. It was something they needed to earn, though she doubted they ever would. Amid her journey of healing and growth, love unexpectedly entered Samantha's life again. It happened gradually, almost imperceptibly, as she reconnected with Daniel, an old friend from college who had reached out after reading about her advocacy work. Their conversations began casually, discussing shared memories and current projects, but soon deepened into meaningful exchanges about life, dreams, and values. Daniel admired Samantha's strength and compassion, while she appreciated his kindness and unwavering support. Their relationship blossomed naturally, built on mutual respect and understanding. Unlike her marriage to Ethan, this connection felt equal and nurturing. Daniel celebrated Samantha's successes, encouraged her ambitions, and stood by her side during challenging times. For the first time, Samantha experienced what it meant to be truly loved, not for what she could provide, but for who she was. Together, they envisioned a future full of possibilities. They talked about collaborating on creative projects, traveling the world, and maybe even starting a family someday. But above all, they cherished the present, savoring each moment as partners in both life and love. Looking back, Samantha realized her journey hadn't been about revenge. It had been about redemption. She had taken the pain inflicted upon her and turned it into something beautiful, a life filled with purpose, joy, and love. And though the road ahead would undoubtedly have its ups and downs, Samantha faced it with unshakable confidence, knowing she was finally living the life she deserved. Years had passed since Samantha walked away from the life that once suffocated her, and now she stood on the balcony of her dream home, gazing out at a breathtaking view. The sun was setting, painting the sky in hues of orange, pink, and gold. A gentle breeze carried the scent of blooming flowers from the garden below. It was a moment of pure serenity, a stark contrast to the turmoil she had endured not so long ago. Her journey hadn't been easy, but every step had led her here, to a place where she felt truly alive. The business she had poured her heart into was thriving, earning accolades and awards for its innovation and excellence. Clients praised her not just for her talent, but for the warmth and dedication she brought to every project. She had built something meaningful, something that reflected who she was: resilient, creative, and unstoppable. But more than professional success, Samantha cherished the personal growth she had achieved. She had learned to love herself, not the version of herself that others wanted her to be, but the real, flawed, and beautiful person she was. Therapy sessions, journaling, and late-night conversations with Daniel had helped her heal old wounds and embrace her worth. She no longer second-guessed her decisions or sought validation from anyone else. For the first time in her life, she trusted herself completely. Samantha's advocacy work continued to inspire others too. Her blog posts and workshops reached women across the globe, offering guidance and encouragement to those trapped in toxic situations. Many wrote to thank her for giving them the courage to leave abusive partners, start over, or simply believe in themselves again. Knowing she had made a difference in their lives filled her with immense gratitude. "You saved me," one woman wrote in an email. "Now I'm saving myself." Ethan and Evelyn rarely crossed her mind these days. Occasionally, snippets of news about their downfall would surface. They had lost everything: their wealth, their reputation, even their social standing. But Samantha didn't feel triumph or satisfaction in their misfortune. Instead, she felt pity. They had wasted years chasing power and control, only to end up empty-handed. Their actions had taught her a valuable lesson. True strength comes not from dominating others, but from lifting yourself, and sometimes others, up. Daniel joined her on the balcony, wrapping his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" he asked softly, placing a kiss on her temple. Samantha smiled, leaning into him. "Just how far we've come," she replied. Together, they watched as the last rays of sunlight disappeared behind the horizon, signaling the start of a new evening. Their relationship had grown stronger with each passing day. They supported each other's dreams, celebrated their achievements, and faced challenges as a team. Recently, they had decided to take another leap of faith, starting a family. Though it was still early days, the idea filled them both with excitement and anticipation. Samantha couldn't wait to share her world with a child, a world full of kindness, resilience, and endless possibilities. As the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, Samantha reflected on her transformation. Once a woman overshadowed by fear and self-doubt, she had risen like a phoenix from the ashes. She had faced cruelty, betrayal, and injustice, yet emerged stronger than ever. Along the way, she had discovered what truly mattered: love, purpose, and freedom. The road ahead wouldn't always be smooth. Life rarely was. But Samantha knew she could handle whatever came her way. She had proven that to herself time and again. With Daniel by her side, a career she adored, and a mission to uplift others, she finally felt whole. And as she stood there, wrapped in the warmth of her own making, Samantha realized something profound. Revenge wasn't sweet. It was unnecessary. What truly satisfied her was knowing she had reclaimed her life, turned pain into power, and created a future brighter than anything she had ever imagined. This was her victory, not just over Ethan and Evelyn, but over every obstacle that had tried to break her. And it was hers alone to celebrate.